streaming show where we watch old 16mm films. And yesterday it was rainy and gross. And today it's nice outside, and it's also St. Patrick's Day. So I'm not. In previous years, I've shown films related to St. Patrick's Day, including some pretty horrible Irish stereotypes. So we're not going to do that this year. But what we are going to do is watch this film that I haven't shown in a long time, almost 6 years. This is part of the series that was shown on television called Friends, and this was not the one that was made in the 90s. This is one made in the 70s. Friends in Washington, D.C. Enjoy.
Hi, I'm Robert Edwards. Let's be friends. I live in the nation's capital. I live in the eastern part of the United States, in the District of Columbia. Art's a lot of fun in school.
What the heck happened? That's weird. Alright, well, hopefully this will not continue. Let's learn about a romance in a pond. Enjoy. Alright, I'm not sure exactly what's going on here. Let's try that again. Alright, I'm not sure why this isn't working. I think that OBS has crapped out, which is not great. That is very frustrating. Let's see what's going on here. Let's try this again. Oh, it's weird. It disconnected. Okay, 1 second, please. Oh, boy. Yeah, for some reason, the power on this crapped out, and I'm not sure why. Let me see if I can reload this. I might have to do this for all of these. That is very frustrating. Get to listen to me click on things. Yeah, just the little flash drive freaked out. So let's try this again.
Hidden under a stone throughout the long winter months lies the newt. Dull at this time of the year, both in brain and in appearance, unwilling to stir, but not quite insensible. There is nothing now to tempt the queer little creatures to move. But when the springtime comes, the sun wakes the countryside to beauty and activity. Then the newt wakes up too and feels a call to life and romance. The female newts are the first to get this spring feeling and experience an urge to wriggle off to the nearest pond. Into the pool they glide, and as the undersurface of the water reflects the bottom of the pond, so the reflection of each newt is thrown on the water above its head. Newts are amphibious and can live just as well in water as on land. In the pond, they soon lose their dull winter appearance and become very attractive in spotted suitings that are all the rage at this time of year. They hunt greedily about for insects and worms, which they devour in order to grow fatter, for gentlemen newts are like the owners of eastern harems and admire a tendency to plumpness. This lady is certainly leaving no worm unswallowed in order to achieve sex appeal. Now the gentlemen newts leave the land and take the plunge. The coats they wear to go a-wooing are amazingly attractive, all glittering and brightly colored. Their chief decoration is, however, a wonderful crest which runs along the back from head to tail. No wonder this lady is transfixed by the gentleman's charms, and he appears equally struck by hers. For a brief time, the pond is the honeymoon home of the newts, a center of romance. But alas, in the newt world, marriage is brief and divorce certain. One by one, the newts leave the pond, hardly pausing to cast one longing, lingering look behind before they take once more to dry land. Newts do look very like prehistoric monsters, and though they are quite harmless, their strange appearance often inspires fear and suspicion. Meanwhile, down in the pond can be found reminders of the romance of the newts. Tiny crystal eggs attached to the water weeds and rolled up in leaves to hide them. The dark pot, which is the future newt, soon begins to develop, and after a little changes shape, becoming a kind of crescent. Of course, this picture is very much magnified. Gradually, this crescent begins to suggest an animal with head, body, and tail. The movements of the little creature can be clearly seen at this stage, and they soon become practically continuous. The contortions of the young newt would certainly attract enemies, and it would soon be gobbled up. Only by this time, the egg shell, which is sticky, has collected a coating of rubbish, which acts as a screen for the creature within. And now, at length, the egg is ready to hatch out. Sometimes, very rarely, there are twins in one eggshell. The newt, when it hatches, usually forces its way suddenly through the egg, which is still fastened to the water wheel. Sometimes, however, the inner shell of the egg falls out of the dirty outside cover, and in this case, the newt hatches out even more quickly. A newly hatched newt tadpole is just a head and a tail. There are no limbs of any kind, but on each side of the head is a bunch of gills through which the tadpole breathes. Soon, a pair of forelegs appears. These legs are very easily broken and do not in any way improve the appearance of their owner. Next come the hind legs. If you look carefully, you can see some tadpoles in the picture have got their hind legs. The others have got them just showing on each side of the tail, but not yet grown. The one in the middle now has all four legs fully developed. Gradually, the tadpole grows more attractive in appearance. It is now perfectly equipped for enjoying life in the pond, having a powerful tail with which to swim and well-formed limbs on which it can scramble about among the water weeds. Each tiny foot is perfectly made, though so delicate and transparent that we can see the blood circulating through the tips of the toes. Equally beautiful are the gills, the organs with which the young newt breathes by drawing in oxygen from the water. Looked at from any point of view, through the microscope, they suggest a very lovely glass ornament, rather than the breathing apparatus of a tiny reptile. But the gills gradually get smaller as air-breathing lungs develop inside the tadpole, which is now rather plain in appearance. Soon, however, the lungs will be completely grown, and the newt, having become a land animal, must leave the water. Carefully he pauses to try out his new breathing outfit, and when that proves okay, he takes his first look at dry land and the new world where he is to live. And now for adventure.
That was sweet. Newt. Newt. All right, let's try this again. Friends in DC.
Hi, I'm Robert Edwards. Let's be friends. I live in the nation's capital. I live in the eastern part of the United States, in the District of Columbia. Art's a lot of fun in school. I live in Washington. The city was named for George Washington. This memorial to him has stones from all 50 states. Washington was the first president of the United States. Our president lives in the White House. His working offices are here too. The president recommends laws to Congress. He also signs laws decided by Congress. The president is the elected leader of the American people. Washington has been the capital of the United States since 1800. Congress meets here in the Capitol. Men are elected to Congress by the people of all 50 states. They work here to decide laws that govern our country. Law is also the work of the Supreme Court. The 9 justices of the highest court in the United States meet here to judge important cases of law. Their decisions affect all Americans. Washington's a beautiful city. Ready? Yeah. Come on!
So that was Friends Before Friends. And that was a series that they would show on Saturday mornings as part of the educational content that wasn't a violent cartoon or an ad for toys or cereal. Speaking of ads, this is a wonderful ad for democracy. Try it out.
Recording, analyzing, and reporting.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. Students of society have been reporting objects for a good many centuries, and as yet that they would all accept. There's one point, however, they would all agree on, and this is it. In thinking seriously of democracy, one must define his words carefully and use missions clear. You know exactly what to look for in a community.
Many students agree that 2 important signs of democracy are shared respect and shared power. Let's take shared respect first. Sharing respect means that each shares the respect of all. Not because of his wealth, or his religion, or his color, but because each is a human being, makes his own contribution to the community, from healing its sick to collecting its garbage, from managing its railroads to running its trains. One sign of shared respect in a community is that everybody is given a fair chance to develop useful skills and the chance to put these skills to effective use. And there is shared respect if various groups in the community recognize each other's right to hold different faiths and opinions. And now let's see how we spot the second of the 2 signs of democracy, shared power. Most observers agree that there is true democracy in a community only if there is shared power. That is to say, only if many people have a share in making decisions that the community support with force if necessary. More specifically, you can say that power is shared wherever regular popular elections are authorized and are actually held. There is shared power wherever people actually get out voluntarily and vote. And if they can vote without interference or pressure from anybody. There is shared power if office holders are drawn from representative groups in society. If they include men from the farms, men from the law courts, men from the stores, men from the factories, office holders who are drawn from representative groups of the community. In a democratic legislature, shared power shows itself in a strong opposition. Listen.
And that is why I'm confident the governor will have the support of the House on this bill.
Mr. Speaker, as usual, the honorable gentleman is quite wrong. He and the governor he serves so dutifully can expect no support for their policy from this House.
A strong opposition is made possible by an effective political party system. The two most important signs of democracy, then, are shared respect and shared power. They, in turn, depend on many conditions. Let's consider two of these conditions: economic balance and enlightenment. Economic balance means that the community contains a large middle-income group.
A relationship between economic balance and democracy has been noted and reported for centuries by students of society. Aristotle said that a government made up of middle-income people has the best chance to be democratic. That was 2,000 years ago in Greece. And well over a century ago in America, James Madison warned that extremes of riches and poverty set group against group.
In past centuries, economic balance was improved when large feudal estates were gradually reorganized into independent farms as one part of the development of democracy. This creation of better economic balance aided the further growth of democracy. The social observers of our time have also noted that the development of democracy usually goes hand in hand with the growth of large middle-income groups. In today's world of giant technology, one of democracy's serious problems is how to maintain flourishing middle-income groups. Another important condition for democracy is enlightenment. Making information available to citizens and giving them the skill with which to judge it. As public education increases, democracy grows. In checking a community for democracy, we must find out whether it provides schools adjusted to the needs of its young people. Just being able to get books and newspapers is no guarantee of democracy. The newspapers of a real democracy meet these tests: balanced presentation of news, disclosure of source, competence of the staff. In applying these tests to newspapers, we find out, first of all, if they report both sides. See if the pages contain news only, and if opinion is kept for the editorial page. Next, we see if the paper says plainly who publishes and edits it, so we know which side they're on. Newspapers in a real democracy meet a third test: competence of staff. This test requires newspapermen to value accuracy and impartiality, and to interpret the news skillfully for the public. The competence test also requires newspapermen to use the services of experts.
I want 500 words on freedom of the press for our anniversary edition. How about it?
But, Professor, you know more about the history of freedom of the press than probably any other man in the country.
Yes, that's right. I mean the responsibility of a free press and other forms of communication like the radio and the movies to enlighten the people into democracy.
When we examine any democratic community, large or small, or just average, we find that we can separate out two distinct signs of democracy: shared respect and shared power. They, in turn, depend on at least two conditions in the community: economic balance and enlightenment. There is no standing still. The more economic balance and enlightenment, the more shared respect and shared power. Democracy is something that's never finished. It wanes with neglect, and it grows with care. Economy to enlighten its citizens. Such a community can achieve shared respect, and it can achieve shared power. By working hard at it, the citizens of any community can achieve democracy.
Oops. Where am I? Sorry. Bathroom break. Okay. Let's watch. So that was an Encyclopedia Britannica film about democracy. And boy, there's some great ideas in there. Great ideas. We love them. They seem to have worked for a while. Here's an Encyclopedia Britannica film about drug addiction. And some of the characters in here, they show up in other films. So there's a heroin addict that shows up in many of the social guidance films that Encyclopedia Britannica put out. So, enjoy.
Then death, brain, and the central nervous system. But the body grabs a tolerance. More and more is needed to produce same effects. Body acquires a physical dependence on opiates, so that withdrawal of the drug causes a brief but violent depressant is marijuana, derives and distorts the action of the brain and nervous system in a manner of opiates. Third drug, cocaine, is derived from the leaves of the coca plant. Its action is different from that of the depressants. When cocaine enters the body, it has a strong effect on body functions by acting as an irritant on the brain. Cocaine causes unusual and often unpredictable feelings and actual dependence. Marijuana and cocaine cause and emotional disturbances. A large overdose of cocaine causes convulsions, then death. Government agencies charged with the enforcement of narcotics laws have been able until recently to decrease steadily the number of addicts in the United States. These addicts have included persons in every walk of life. Some are petty criminals who will remain drug addicts all their lives. Many addicts come from teeming slum areas where human misery runs high. But the grim specters of heroin, marijuana, and cocaine are not confined to any area or to any group. Wherever there is a troubled personality, no matter how hidden or unrecognized, there may be a seedbed for drug addiction. So unpredictable is this habit that occasionally even one who knows the dangers may become addicted before he realizes it. Sometimes the addict may come from a wealthy family, where drugs respect neither riches nor poverty. Such a victim doesn't have to steal to support his expensive habit, but the degrading effects are the same. In recent increase in drug addiction among young people, often in their teens, who take up the habit without the slightest understanding of the living nightmare they are so unthinkingly walking into. To get the illegal drugs, they are forced to deal with criminals who prey on those least able to defend themselves. And to find money for their expensive habit, they...
Then I looked down under his foot and I found this envelope with 6 caps in it. Here's a chemical lab report on it. It's heroin.
What do you have to say, Demelon? Let's see your arms. How long have you been taking heroin?
Well,
Speak up.
about 2 years, I guess.
What about before then?
Well, I smoked marijuana for a while.
How long?
4 or 5 months, I guess.
How did you get started on this?
Well, I don't know. A friend of mine, he started me.
Started by a friend. An oft-told story. For drug addiction is contagious. One addict can make 20. Marty's story is like many of the others. It started 2 years ago with marijuana cigarettes.
Come on, it's my turn next. Gee, Duke, where'd you get him?
I know a guy.
3 for $1.
Let me try. Gee, I feel awful funny.
Me too. I feel kind of sick.
Come on, Marty, pass it on.
Marty got kind of sick too, but he wouldn't let on. He was determined to be one of the gang if it killed him. And it almost did. Several weeks later, after smoking reefers, Marty's befogged brain hit on a clever way to open pop bottles. Later, Stan went to the hospital for swallowing broken glass. Marty badly cut the inside of his mouth, though he didn't even know it at the time. Duke was the one who got Marty on the habit. It was just a business matter to Duke, though Marty didn't find it out till later.
Hey, Marty. Here. Okay, here.
What's that?
H.
H? What's H?
That's a law. It's heroin.
Will it make me sick like the reefers did?
Go on and try it. I dare you.
How much does it cost?
This one ain't gonna cost you nothing. It's free. Go on. I dare you.
In his ignorance, Marty took that dare, little knowing the eventual horror that lay in the deadly white powder. Those first capsules were free. But when Marty started asking for them, the price came high. $1.50 apiece.
That's right, kid. 15 bucks.
This ought to hold me for a while. I hocked my camera to get this dough.
Where's my cut?
You don't get one. This kid's hooked. Go out and get some new kids if you want to cut.
Well, he's still snorting it.
So what? Snorting or mainlining, what's the difference? He's hooked.
Hey, look, Louis, I gotta have my cut. It's costing me more than ever now that I'm on speedballs. That cocaine's
Your problem, kid. So, you're snorting it, huh? Yeah. Well, don't be a sucker. You're wasting it that way. Use a needle.
Is that what you do, Louis?
Sure. Like I'm doing it, see? Lining it. Stuff costs too much to waste it.
Kid, you ought to go on the needle.
Nah, I don't want to punch myself full of holes like that.
But he did use the needle, despite his fear of it. At first, he shot the drug under his skin, then directly into the vein. As his body gradually built up a tolerance, he needed more and more of the drug. There was no pleasure in it for Marty. It was a bodily demand. He was using 4 or 5 caps a day now. They cost him $7.50, $52.50 a week. It was more than his salary at the store could pay for. He thought old Barston would never miss a few things here and there. But he was wrong. Barston didn't prosecute, but Marty no longer had a job. Drugs were becoming Marty's whole life. He was abnormally sleepy, losing weight, cross, irritable, fearful that the puncture marks on his arms would be discovered. His former friends now let him strictly alone. But with a false sense of loyalty, they didn't report him to the authorities. They would have done him a favor if they had. Left from Marty were other drug addicts like Duke. It didn't matter. Nothing mattered but the ever-present craving for the drugs. He had given up interest in everything else. Marty's family saw all of these symptoms and others too, but didn't understand them. Often in the morning, his pillow would be wet from perspiration. His mother knew something was wrong. Something.
Marty, have you seen the pinking shears I bought last week? I find them anywhere.
How should I know, Mom?
Marty, you don't seem right, son. I'm worried about you.
I'm all right, Mom. Just leave me alone.
There's something wrong. I'm going to take you down to Dr. Bleeker's this afternoon for a checkup.
No, I'm all right.
Don't act like son. I don't know what it could be. Ever since you lost that job at Mr. Barston. I don't know.
I'm all right, Mom. I'll snap out of it.
I hope so. You've lost weight. You don't have dates. You don't go out with the fellas anymore like you used to. There's something wrong. I know there must be. Well, boys go through all kinds of stages. Dr. Bleeker can tell us if there's anything wrong. I hope it isn't anything serious. Marty! Marty!
Marty was hooked, physically dependent on heroin. When he was without the white powder too long, his whole body revolted in dreadful protest. Sweat poured from him. He got the shakes. He had cold chills. His nose ran and his eyes ran. He was doubled up by piercing cramps, plagued by sudden attacks of vomiting and of diarrhea. Nothing could stop these attacks but more of the white drug in his veins.
All right, kid. Beat it. I don't want you hanging around here.
Okay. Give me a chance.
Hitting it tough, huh?
None of your business.
Okay. That's the way you feel about it? I was just trying to help you out, that's all.
Yeah. You wouldn't help your mother out of a rat hole.
How would you like to make a fast couple of bucks?
Doing what?
Oh, it's easy. Nothing to it. I could use some new customers.
Customers? You mean suckers.
I'll give you the same cut I gave Duke.
What happened to him?
Oh, he's brought in everybody he knows. I gotta branch out.
Well, I could use the dough at that.
Fine. Start him out on reefers. It's easier that way, and it's cheaper.
Yeah, that's the way I started. You got 'em?
Sure. For you, 2 bits apiece.
Well, give me 2 for now. That's all the dough I got, right now.
So Marty went out to spread his contagion. And Louis, well, it was just business to him. The capsules of heroin, so necessary to Marty, were only so much stock to Louis. That stock had reached him through a series of well-organized underworld transactions. Some months back, smuggled ashore in a box of fresh-caught fish, were a number of small tubes of pure heroin, 1 kilogram in all, a little more than 2 pounds. Originally bought for $1,000, it was resold after being smuggled into this country for $7,000. It was mixed with a similar-looking white powder, milk sugar, and sold again for $30,000. These were big business transactions possible only by organized criminal syndicates. Many believe such syndicates, in a cold-blooded scheme to create a market for their drugs, are directly responsible for the sudden growth of drug addiction among young people. By the time Louis Legty got it, the heroin had been cut many times, passed through many hands for investment. Big stakes, worth taking a few chances for, especially when Pusher Louis would take the rap. But even Louis wasn't taking much of a chance. He had junkies, dope addicts, working for him, like Marty Demelon. Marty had to keep going somehow to bring in the daily flow of money necessary to keep his habit supplied with drugs. When there were no new customers for Louis, Marty worked at any job he could find. But the jobs didn't last long. Often he had to turn to petty thieving and shoplifting to get the money he so desperately needed. Before long, he became fairly well known to the police.
Mrs. Demelon, do you have anything to say?
Yes, Judge. Marty, he isn't a bad boy. I wish you could have seen him before he started this poison. He always made good grades at school. He was doing so well at Mr. Barston's grocery. Judge, he's a good boy.
I understand. Demelon, I believe you acquired the drug habit through ignorance. If you knew then what you know now, you probably never would have touched that first marijuana cigarette. Well, there's no way of undoing it now. I'm going to sentence you to 1 year in the municipal jail. However, I'll suspend sentence if you're willing to be committed to a hospital for the treatment of drug addicts and stay there until medically discharged.
You mean to try to kick the habit?
That's right. They know how to get you over the physical dependence with the least amount of withdrawal sickness. Do you agree?
Yes, sir.
All right, so ordered. Next case.
For those already addicted to drugs, the first step in rehabilitation must be commitment to a hospital where they will be under medical guidance. For the addict willing to be committed or sent by the courts, there are federally operated hospitals. Adequate local hospitals would help to cope with this problem. The treatment itself lasts for months, but withdrawing the drug takes a comparatively short time. The major problem is helping the addict achieve a workable psychological adjustment to life, a life which doesn't include drugs. It's a difficult procedure. No hospital, no doctor can be sure of success in trying to change long-time attitudes. Back in his old haunts, the former addict still finds himself shunned by all but the addicts and peddlers who were his associates before. For effective treatment, there must be a long-term, community-wide program to help the former addict and his family make an adjustment.
Beat it, Duke. I want no part of you.
Don't be a square. What's it getting you?
I don't know yet, Duke. I took plenty to kick the habit. It's my chance, and I'm taking it.
Chance? You ain't got no chance. You're just a junkie to everybody around here.
I know. But they helped me get a job in here. And they went to see Ma. And the doc says that if
Doc says? What does he know? Listen, I'm telling you.
Oh, cut it.
Against such pressures, local outpatient clinics, social agencies, the church, all are needed if drug addicts are to adjust to a new life. Without intensive effort by all community forces, very few drug addicts can ever expect to return to a normal, useful life in society. It is important in the overall problem of drug addiction to do everything possible to stop the sale of the drugs. One step would be to increase the staff of enforcement agencies, not only federal, but state and municipal agencies too. Criminal syndicates might give up drug traffic entirely if nationwide laws provided for stringent penalties to counteract the tremendous profits, and if these laws were energetically enforced. Certainly such laws would restrict the actions of non-addict peddlers like Louis Legte and make it harder for him to reach his victims. Basic to everything else is a wider knowledge, especially among young people, of the grave danger involved in any kind of experimentation with drugs. They should understand that thoughtless curiosity about what it feels like to smoke marijuana or take a shot of heroin can lead to a lifetime of pain and torment, constantly faced by the horror of being without drugs. Much can be done to stamp out this vicious practice if each person who knows of a drug peddler or a drug addict reports him to the authorities immediately as a deadly menace to himself. For every person must take some of the responsibility for preventing the growth of drug addiction. he must face the possibility that he himself may be a potential drug addict. Only by avoiding these drugs, sure that he will remain forever.
Well, what happened? Boy, a bunch of these films just got clipped up. Let's watch this interesting film about the Hobbs Act.
It's universally recognized that the American labor management relationship works well. The collective bargaining process is the heart of that system and is the envy of people throughout the world. Millions of workers in Poland are willing to risk confrontation in order to have their right to a free labor movement recognized. Collective bargaining, as practiced in this country, recognizes the right of employers to disagree with workers and the right of workers to disagree with management. Such disagreements are rare or settled amicably. Yet little is heard of that accomplishment. Instead, the focus is on the 4% of the situations in which there is a lockout or strike and picketing. Picketing is a form of free speech protected by the First Amendment. In our society, there is picketing over all sorts of issues. Most people have to have a strong commitment in order to carry a picket sign. Strikes usually don't last long. The picketing is peaceful, and an agreement is reached. When union members walk a picket line, they are risking their paychecks, and sometimes their jobs. They may be protesting unlawful or unreasonable action by the employer that has driven them out of work. Plainly, when that is true, the situation is tense, and emotions run high.
I got 27 years in here, and they can just walk away and leave me, and offer me no job whatsoever. All we want is a guarantee that if the plant, if they do have to move, that our contract will go with them and we'll be offered jobs.
When human emotion gets out of hand, when tempers are short, there can be violence. No one defends violence, especially in labor disputes, where resolving problems depends on clear thinking and compromise.
Remember one thing, that we don't need violence because we got unity.
But violence does happen. Rarely, but it does happen. And when it happens, it can come from either side, from a worker fighting for his job, or an employer or supervisor angry at strikers. It is those rare instances of violence on the picket line that are now the subject of major debate in Congress. Certain anti-labor groups are pushing a bill in Congress that would leave picket line violence by employers a matter for local courts, while making the same offense for union members a federal crime, carrying much higher penalties. Under present law, picket line wrongdoing is a state crime, punishable by state penalties. A fistfight on a picket line is treated like a fistfight anywhere else. A fistfight over a labor dispute is no more wrong and no more right than if it occurred in a parking lot after a football game. It is no more wrong or right if started by an employer or by a union member. The one labor organization that represents most of our country's union members, the AFL-CIO, does not believe that the federal government should police picket lines in the interests of employers. We've had that one-sided approach to labor relations before, and it didn't work. The AFL-CIO is not alone in that opinion. State and local prosecutors and police believe that there are already sufficient federal and state laws that cover any serious crimes committed during a labor dispute. William J. Gust, Attorney General of Louisiana.
Several issues are involved. The first is whether it is equal protection of the law to make picket line violence by union members a federal offense without making similar crimes by employer representatives federal crimes as well. Now, it seems to me it's fundamentally discriminatory not to do so. It discriminates against one class of citizens and represents unequal protection of the law. The second issue is whether the country needs the federal government getting involved in crimes like simple assault and malicious mischief. state laws and local law enforcement agencies are fully capable of handling this kind of situation. The FBI and the federal courts have far more important problems than to divert manpower and resources to handle this kind of problem.
How serious a problem is picket line violence? The most recent FBI crime report doesn't refer to a single incident. You have to wonder, are the people who want to label as extortion any threat or wrongful act by workers on a picket line opposed to picket line violence, or are they just opposed to unions? If they had their way, for the same offense, an employer would get 30 days in jail, while a union member would get a $10,000 fine and 20 years in prison. That's not fair. That's plain anti-unionism. AFL-CIO President Lane Kirkland.
All laws, including labor laws, should be administered fairly and enforced even-handedly. No one condones picket line violence. In fact, unions try to prevent it. But carrying a union card should not make someone a felon when he commits a misdemeanor.
If you agree that law enforcement should be fair, please tell your senator and representative. Picket line violence is the responsibility of our state and local law enforcement agencies. That's where enforcement should remain, on the local level.
Well, that was fascinating. I don't know where that film came from, but wow. That's of a time for sure. Okay, one last film. We're going to go back with our good friends. I think this is Encyclopedia Britannica. Sound waves and their sources. Enjoy.
Three different sources of sound give voice to musical instruments. Vibrating columns of air, as in the woodwinds, vibrating surfaces, such as drum heads and cymbals, and vibrating strings, such as those of the string section. But whether or not a sound is musical, each of the countless sounds in our environment originates in some object that vibrates. In this film, we shall study how sounds are produced and the principal auditory differences of sounds. To begin with, what is involved in producing sounds? To help answer this question, we experiment first with a tuning fork. When the fork is struck, its prongs begin to vibrate. These vibrations set up invisible waves in the surrounding air. We can picture these waves as animated drawings. Striking the prongs distorts them. Like other solid objects, these prongs resist distortion. They spring back and forth, thus producing new distortions. Each movement or vibration sets up new disturbances, or sound wave impulses. These continue as long as the prongs are in motion. The speed with which sound waves move depends upon the medium through which they pass. We will assume that these waves are being transmitted by air molecules. Every time the prongs move apart, they push against the adjacent air. In turn, this movement affects the air further on. In this segment of the wave, we can see that some molecules are pushed relatively close together. These represent condensations of air. Each time the prongs spring inward, a partial vacuum forms in their vicinity. Air molecules nearby move into this vacuum, leaving a rarefied zone behind. Thus, there are alternate zones of condensation and rarefaction of the air. The number of times a given molecule moves back and forth in 1 second is the frequency of the wave. In one complete vibration, indicated here by the bracket, sound travels a distance of 1 wavelength. The velocity of any sound wave equals its wavelength times its frequency. We can record pressure variations in sound waves with this kind of instrument, an oscillograph. Sound waves are striking the diaphragm at the left. The stylus records the sound waves as a graph. Later, we shall use such graphs to represent sound waves. Condensations cause the stylus to move upward. Rarefactions cause it to move downward. So far, we've seen how sound waves are produced. Next, we'll identify 3 auditory effects of musical sounds: loudness, pitch, and quality. We begin with loudness. Every sound sets up a disturbance in the transmitting medium. The larger the disturbance or displacement of the individual particles, the greater is the height of its graph above the neutral line. This displacement above the neutral line is called amplitude, and it is amplitude that determines loudness. As the amplitude of a sound increases, its loudness increases. Next, let us consider pitch, the auditory effect of frequency. First, we hear the sound of middle C. Next, we hear G below middle C. And now the sound of C below middle C. What causes such differences in pitch? To explain such differences, we picture 2 different sound waves. Here, the lower fork makes more complete vibrations per second. Therefore, its frequency is greater. It is evident that the one with the greater frequency has the higher pitch. The frequency of a vibrating string depends upon the material it's made of and its density, tension, and length. Different instruments produce sounds of different tonal quality, even when playing the same basic frequencies. Each vibrating string may be made to produce different tones. To explain some of the reasons for this, let us observe this string. Here there is no motion at these endpoints or nodes. The string vibrates along its full length and produces its longest possible wavelength. This is the lowest or fundamental frequency of the string, sometimes called the first partial. If the string vibrates in 2 segments, it produces a wavelength that's 1/2 that of the fundamental. This is the first overtone, which may be called the second partial. Since wavelength is inversely proportional to frequency, the frequency of the first overtone is twice that of the fundamental. When the string vibrates in 3 segments, it produces its second overtone, the third partial. Here, the frequency is 3 times that of the fundamental. But usually, several different modes of vibration occur simultaneously. The result is a compound waveform. Here we represent the fundamental tone supplemented by its first and second overtones. Differences in the audible components of a sound determine its quality. Quality helps us recognize the characteristic sounds of various musical instruments and distinguish one voice from another. With this oscilloscope, we can represent as waves the sounds being produced and see their different modes of vibration, as in the case of vibrating strings. Besides strings, we've already considered vibrating surfaces. The The vibrations from such diaphragms are often quite complex. This diaphragm, for example, vibrates in a number of different segments. The third of the principal sources of sound is the vibrating column of air. The organ pipe, like the woodwind, produces sound by means of such an air column. Often the exposed pipes of an organ are merely decorative, and sounds are produced by the pipes in the organ loft. The wavelengths fitting the shorter pipes are shorter, and their frequencies are greater than the longer pipes. Consequently, the shorter pipes produce the sounds of higher pitch. The different kinds of pipes produce different qualities of sound. The organist uses stops and keys and pedals to admit compressed air into the pipes. Besides woodwind instruments and organ pipes, another mechanism that depends upon a vibrating column of air for its sound is the vocal mechanism of man. Here, sound waves result from vibrations of air that start in the vocal folds of the trachea. These waves are reflected back and forth in the cavities of the mouth, nose, and head, thus producing the complex sounds of speech and song. So we've sampled a few out of the multitude of sounds in our environment and have studied the meanings of loudness, pitch, and quality. From the vast number of vibrations that we interpret as sounds, we may gather a wealth of meaning and enjoyment.
Sorry about that. Again, caught up in the day talking about U-matic 3/4 inch videotape. That's what we do here at AV Geeks. Anyways, thanks so much for watching today. What a weird mixed bag of stuff. I love it. We're back to scanning our materials again. And so there will be lots of all over the place stuff. And I kind of like that. I certainly like the themed shows, but I also like just, what is this film? And what is this film? And there's some weird compilation things that have just showed up too that we'll be looking at over this week. But everybody have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you tomorrow. If you like what you saw, hit the thumbs up, hit the like button, subscribe. You can also donate via the Super Thanks button, or via Patreon, or Venmo, or you can buy us some coffee. Everybody take care, and we will see you soon.